All right. I am sitting here with David Krukiel, a good friend of mine. We've been friends for a while, and we're probably going to talk about a lot of things, but probably mostly around real estate, around multifamily stuff, around retirement, post-acute care, all sorts of stuff like that. But give a quick background on David. You got your degree. You got your degree in construction science, right? Yeah, same as me from Texas A&M University.
I started in architecture, right?
I did. So you started off environmental design.
Actually, landscape architecture.
Oh, okay.
And I was the only student that Professor Wang, who was the hardest professor, gave an A to.
Did you say hard wing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I changed degrees to construction science, obviously still in Langford, the College of Architecture. And so I saw him on a regular basis, and he turned his head every time he saw me and ignored me. He was extremely pissed off that I changed. But I got a call from my uncle, who's an architect, that has been very successful with it. Didn't have a relationship with him growing up. And he called me one day and said, David, I know we don't have a relationship, but your daddy told me that you're studying to be an architect or a landscape architect or something like that. And he's like, I kind of know the Krukiel mentality, and we want to make money. We want to enjoy what we do. It's like, I recommend you consider going to do something that would kind of let you segue into being a developer, because the reality is very few architects are successful and very few architects get to be creative. They're only putting on the paper what the owner and the developer tells them to put on the paper. And it just so happens that it was right at the time of year where I could change my degree. I went down and the next day and met with an advisor in construction science and changed my degree, and took another extra 2 years in school to do it. But
yeah, so
it was kind of an overnight decision.
So I want to, actually, just a little housekeeping. By the way, when you tap the table, noise. It picks up in the microphone.
In the video.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, construction science. Most people probably don't know what that is. So what is a construction science degree? What do you study? What do you learn?
Construction science to me, you tell me if you agree with this.
Yeah, I want to hear yours first.
Construction science to me is a business degree with a lot of physics.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of scheduling thrown in there.
Yeah.
A little bit of materials and methods, but you're really not learning how to build things. You're learning how to manage the project, and you're learning the science behind how it comes together. And
well, that's there's certain things that I feel like everyone should learn, sort of just like everyone should learn addition, subtraction, how to read. I think everyone should learn critical path scheduling.
Absolutely. It doesn't apply just to construction.
No, it applies to doing your laundry, right? Like I've thought about it before. I'm like, what is a critical path for your laundry, right? It's just, you got to get the stuff through. So it's like you take the stuff out of the dryer, put the stuff in from the washing machine as quickly as possible, and then start it before you fold the clothes, because that's the critical path through the washing.
And you need to know when the washing is going to be done,
so
that it doesn't sit in the washing machine too long. You need to schedule how often. I mean, come on, we're talking about the importance of critical path scheduling, but more often than not, I have to rewash my clothes because they sit in the washer for 6 hours and get smelly.
Yeah,
because I haven't paid attention to the schedule.
No, but critical path scheduling is a really interesting concept.
It really is.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just kind of like dive right into like where you're at now. So you just opened up a new facility,
Iris Memory Care. Yeah, so this is our second. So we just opened up Iris Memory Care, Rowlett, Texas, suburb of DFW. It's the second community for Iris to open. We started 4 years ago. Gonna be real honest. It initially started out as looking like a very economical business. When I was first started in the business about 8 years ago, 10 years ago now, when we worked at Amley, got laid off because the multifamily boom crashed. I keep tapping. Sorry, I'm gonna put my hands in my lap and hold them together and twiddle my thumbs.
I was gonna say I was about to have to start holding hands with you.
Seriously. So, anyways, I started working when we got laid off from Amley. I got lucky and got into the memory care world, assisted living, specializing in memory care, dementia care, Alzheimer's, and worked in it for 6 or 7 years for this family company.
And so I'm sorry, I want to fill in something real quick. Sorry to interrupt you. So I think this is a really interesting point of kind of about what you do, is that memory care is for people who basically need a lot of supervision, but not a lot of medical care, right? Like,
No, well, yeah. So they're getting assistance with activities of daily living. We do everything from prepare their food, incontinence and toileting,
right.
laundry, housekeeping. With memory care, kind of the additional step from assisted living is they need a secure environment. So they can't get out of our buildings. It's in lockdown with special access control systems. Stays locked. We have to fight with the fire department of every city we build in because it kind of goes against what you typically do for
they want
egress.
free egress,
right? Yeah. Exactly. So, but I can get into all those details in a second. I want to talk about how I got into it. So kind of back to my point, I initially was attracted to it because of the economics. So I'll say about halfway through my tenure with this family company, I wanted to start my own because I saw the dollar signs. But then as I continued my tenure there, I started to grow passionate about the actual care and wanting to fulfill a need for not just the residents, but the family members that are having to place their loved one in an assisted living memory care community.
Yeah, 'cause that's really, I don't, it sounds like I'm making a joke, but I mean, a lot of the people in your facilities aren't super aware of what's going on. So it's really the family that's impacted more.
100% of our residents, the decision for them to move into our community is made by a family member or a loved one.
Yeah.
Sometimes there isn't a family member. But they don't call me and say, "Hey, I think I need memory care. Can I move into your community?"
Right.
But anyway, so long story short, worked for this family company, was driven by the economics, and started to see a need that needed to be fulfilled for compassionate memory care. A lot of times, more often than not, you find that it's kind of an afterthought to an assisted living community. So they'll add a wing onto it. It's not home-like. It's not comfortable. It's very institutional in nature, cold, kind of sterile environment. So Iris Memory Care is, long story short, is kind of the epitome of that. We build a community. We build communities that are designed to stimulate the senses, look and feel as much like a single family home as possible. We have higher staff to resident ratios than most of our competitors. So I've done a lot of things that have kind of lowered those economics because I'm doing it more from a passion standpoint and wanting to fulfill a need, as opposed to the economics. So it's a hard business. There's, I couldn't tell you each morning how I'm going to wake up and feel. Sometimes I'm like, man, this is tough. Gotta endure and go through it. But you wake up, and every day I go to the community and I get to interact with my residents and I get to interact with my staff. We have great staff at both of our communities. If there's ever a doubt in my mind, once I see the residents or see the staff, kind of goes away and makes it worth the hard work and the challenge. And
yeah. So originally, in fill in the details on this, but originally, essentially, you were just pretty much a developer. Like, you hired general contractors, you hired architects, you hired a management company to manage it. And then, if I recall correctly, you had some issues with your management company. And so kind of overnight, you went from, how many, like 3 people in your company to 100. Couple hundred. Yeah.
Yeah. When you count all of our employees and caregivers and nurses and cook staff and, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. So yeah, I'm historically by trade a developer. When my business partner and I started this company, we were developers, third-party management, and I'm a real estate guy. I like to put the deal together. I like the fun part of the chase of the deal, the thrill of the deal, the design, the construction, and kind of moving on to the next one. But because of economics, nobody manages or looks after a community like the owner does.
Yeah.
And so from an economic standpoint, I would say dollars and cents probably weren't being managed, not just cents, CENTS, but sense, common sense.
Yeah.
Just kind of was lacking. And then when we're not the manager, it's really hard for us to be in control and make sure that our mission in 3 words, it's much longer, but in 3 words, it's, compassion, dignity, and comfort. And making sure that mission is fulfilled is tough to do because you have a lot of layers. And as the owner, it's kind of hard to go in because technically the employees don't work for you. It's just a lot of barriers. So we made the decision, and it was a long, well thought out plan, but seemed to happen pretty much overnight, where we basically decided to take over the management of the operations ourselves. That happened in March of this year. So we've, the business all around has gotten much better. Everything from care to financials to the happiness of the families and the residents. Now I'm not just a developer, I'm an owner operator, and in the details on a very regular basis.
Okay, so what are let's talk some specs. Like if we're talking to like a real estate audience, let's you take one of these facilities. How much land are we talking about? How much parking? How big are they? How many beds?
That's a good question. So I'm going to speak to ours as opposed to industry standard.
Yep.
Industry standard is big, institutional, right? Like I said, we're the antithesis. I said epitome earlier. I meant antithesis. We're the antithesis of institutional.
Okay.
So our communities are comprised of 2 buildings. We have between 40 and 48 residents, depending on which community, that we can have residing at.
And that's total. So total. 20 to 24.
20 to 24 per building, right? That's done intentionally. Again, sorry to harp on it, but that does hurt the economics because you lose a lot of economies when it comes to staffing. Now I have to have a kitchen in both buildings. I have to have a certain number of staff to maintain my ratios in each building. But we do that so that we're delivering the quality of care and the environment that we've struck out on our own to do. Excuse me. So that being said, for an Iris community, each one's 12.5 to 13,000 square feet each building.
Okay.
On a campus. So 25, let's just call it 25,000 square feet of building, mirror images of each other, both buildings. We were able to do our first one, which is in Edmond, Oklahoma, on a little over 2 acres because it had kind of loose zoning requirements and development requirements.
As far as setbacks,
short setbacks, no detention.
Oh yeah, because your Rockwell one, you have a massive detention pond, right?
Exactly.
It's huge.
It's huge. I have to get the property rezoned for everyone we do because most jurisdictions, most cities don't have zoning specifically for assisted living or memory care. So we go in and we do a PD, which is a plan development. You know what that is, where we specify, all right, we're going to put.
You essentially write your own zoning.
You write your own zoning. But the cities 9.5 times out of 10 are still going to dictate things like setbacks and things of that nature. So we're really just kind of writing our own zoning for our use and specifying parking ratios and things of that nature. So we got pretty lucky with the setbacks and the parking requirements, no detention in Edmond. In Rowlett, it was uphill battle with the surrounding neighborhood.
So how much land do you have there?
4.5 acres.
4.5 acres. Holy cow.
Yeah, we got a lot of unused space. We've got 50-foot setbacks.
You should grow some corn or
I know. Maybe we could get a agricultural exemption on our
taxes.
taxes.
Yeah, no kidding.
Seriously,
you can at least have a garden, right?
Well, we have.
I'm sure your cooks would love that.
Yeah, we actually have planters. We have raised planters that our residents that are in wheelchairs can come up and plant on. It's an activity. It's funny you say that. So we're actually thinking about making part of the property parkland for days when it's not 107 degrees outside. We do have outside area that's gated and secure. Yeah, I know. Gated and secure for the residents. But yeah, we're trying to think of what we can do with some of that excess land. We've thought about making it a park. Of course, don't want to dedicate it to the city. So if we make it a park and then we allow people to come on and use it, now we take on a liability. So we're not going to do that.
That's just crazy. Yeah. Okay. So let's dig into that a little bit. So you have some land that you would be more than willing to share with people, with the whole neighborhood, the community. You would like to put maybe some playground equipment,
some benches.
But then if someone goes down a slide and breaks their arm, they're going to sue you.
I get sued.
Yeah. For being the nice guy.
Yep.
No good deed goes unpunished.
That's right.
Okay. So you got, so you're ranging from 2 to 4.5 acres. You're about 25,000 square feet. Obviously, well, they're single story buildings. Makes things easier, because if you did 2-story, you have to put an elevator. Now we're talking, what is it? Just a 2-stop elevator? You're looking at 50, 60?
Yeah, the more floors you go, the less per floor it gets up to a certain point, and then the more per floor it gets when you go high. But I think the last elevator I did was about a year ago on an independent living, multifamily style, just really it's apartments for senior citizens. I want to say it's about $25,000 to $35,000 a floor, a stop.
Okay. Yeah, I did the project I did on Fort Worth Avenue. I think we were like at about 130 for 3-stop elevators, so it'd be 65. So, but those were just like utility elevators, so they're a little over 20 a stop.
Right.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, stop is basically if you have an elevator that goes from the ground floor, that's one stop, to the second floor, to the whatever, that's another stop. So anyways, just to clarify the language, and these are all they're all wood frame, right?
Yeah. So they're all wood frame. So to do a 2-story kind of intimidates me from the code. It's just something I'm not used to, so I have to really dig into it. Because we are looking at some new opportunities right now that are assisted living with memory care.
Would you have to do
all I2 occupancy for the memory care component? So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So for I2 occupancy for 1 story, you can very easily do stick frame. So
A2 occupancy would be the same
I2.
as like, oh, he said I2. I think he said you had to do A2.
No, I2.
I was like, that's like a bar.
No.
I was like, that's a lot of density, man. Like they're going to be nightclubbing old folks. Like, okay, so all I2. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with institutional zoning.
Fire ratings on the ceiling. I could tell you anything and everything you want to know about UL detail P522, which is my ceiling rating.
Do schools fall into I ratings as well?
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've never done schools or hospitals. I've never done any of that stuff.
Yeah, hospitals. Wow, I don't even know.
Yeah,
that'd be
okay. So lots of fire rating, obviously fully sprinkled.
Fully sprinkled. Not so there's a 13 and a 13R by code fire sprinkler. 13R
You're commercial.
Stands for residential, so we're commercial. We're all steel pipe.
Yeah, none of that orange pipe.
None of the orange plastic pipe. We're in the ceiling and in the attic and in every nook and cranny that you can possibly find in the building has to be fire sprinkled. I have fire rated walls that have to go from the floor through the ceiling all the way to the bottom of the roof deck in the attic to create different compartments.
So you have like a maximum, you can do maybe like 5,000 square feet before you have to firewall it or something.
I don't know. I don't know the specifics. Yeah, but it's based on square footage and how many occupants can be in the area. One of the things that was really challenging for us is for an I2 occupancy and based on the Texas licensing agency regulations, design standards, you can do what we do in our design, which is an open kitchen to make it feel residential. So when you walk into one of our communities, it's like walking into a very high-end, nice single-family home, albeit a little bit larger, right?
Yeah, I describe people. I say it's like a sorority house for old people.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's a good analogy. But one of the things that's important to us is that kitchen be open to the area that the residents are in, which is the living room and dining room. It's the great room, kitchen, living room, dining room, kind of all together. Residents can't go in the kitchen, but we have the open bar concept and that's important because it stimulates the senses of our residents. It's an activity for them to go stand at the bar area and interact with the chef. B, the smells and the aromas that come from the kitchen, the noises that come from the kitchen, all of that is proven to stimulate the senses. And so
get the digestive juices flowing, right, and prepare to eat. It
assists them with dietary needs, getting them prepared to eat, but it's also an activity for them. They really love interacting with the chef every day.
So you have this opening. Is it like a square footage limit on how big this opening?
No, there's no square footage on the limit, but I have to do kind of 2 steps above what the typical. Say I just closed that wall off and didn't have the opening, my construction would be a lot easier. But because of that open kitchen, there's a lot of things, probably a list of 20 items that I have to do life safety wise throughout the building in order to have that open kitchen. One of them, for example, is we cook with gas. You're a chef, you're a cook, you like to, gas is better.
Oh yeah.
So in order to have gas cooktop with the open kitchen, we have to have kind of a dual, what's the word? Safety measures in place. The chef has to go to a separate room in the building and flip a switch. And then next to the range in the wall is a timer that can be set for no more than 120 minutes. The chef has to flip the switch, turn the timer on, and then there's a solenoid that opens, that allows the gas line to open to get gas to the range. When that 120 minutes is up, you have to turn the dial again, reset it. And when they're done for the day or for the meal or whatever they're preparing, they have to go into the other room and turn the light switch off. But it's the light switch.
Well, and these
with
are
a special
commercial.
key.
These are commercial ranges too. So
They've already got systems in place.
Well, and I'm saying they don't have igniters on them.
No.
So like if you got 8 burners going and gas cuts off on you, if you're not paying attention, you got to relight all those burners. And
They actually do have igniters on them.
oh, do they?
Yeah.
Okay, you got some high end commercial ranges.
Yeah.
there,
And
dude.
the reason they have igniters on them is because of those safety systems.
Yeah.
Because of what you just said.
No standing pilot lights.
No pilot lights.
Yep.
Right. So we do the igniter so we don't have to have that pilot light.
Okay. Interesting. So, let's back up. We were talking about the noises of the kitchen and the smells and the aromas, which brings in a good point. I'm somewhat obsessed with human nutrition and even canine nutrition and other types of nutrition, but just become a topic I like to research and think about and talk about. What do you guys employ a nutritionist or a dietitian, or how does that work?
We have a dietitian on retainer that comes in regularly. It's based on need, so I can't tell you, if it's once a week. Sometimes it's 3 times a week. Sometimes it's once a month. We have a dietitian on retainer. We have our menus are well thought out and planned out with the dietitian and our cook, the executive director, and our wellness director, who is a nurse. And everything's tweaked to meet the needs of each individual resident. The kitchen's kind of out of my forte, but
okay. So yeah, do you know, like, where'd you recruit your chef from? Was like, that's, I'm kind of wondering, like, if I'm opening a memory care facility and I'm like, I need a chef, I'm like, where the hell do I get a memory care chef? I mean, is it, you look more institutional or?
No, so I guess this isn't really a secret. I don't want to give my secret, but it's not really a secret at the end of the day.
I know one's listening. Don't worry.
So, right. So I believe in finding the best that are experienced. You can post an ad, but if somebody's happy where they are, they're not looking for ads.
Yeah.
I just go shop on my
competition.
You got to
knock on doors, right?
Yeah, I knock on doors and shop the competition. I may go in and act like I'm looking for a place for my mom and say, I want to try your meals. So I'll have a meal there. And then
That's awesome.
The chef doesn't know that I'm interviewing them potentially for a position in one of our communities. So,
yeah, no, I was having this conversation with somebody else saying, I was having a conversation talking about another conversation. And it was about, the conversation I was having was about real estate. And this guy was having some zoning issues. And I said, well, if you just go right across the street from where you're at, it's straight up industrial manufacturing. Like, you can do whatever over there. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, there's no properties for lease over there. And I'm like, dude, I was like, you need to change your mindset. I was like, you just have to go find a building you want. And then of course, yeah, somebody may go, hey, no, I got this fully functional business here, I'm not interested or whatever. But man, if you're looking for lease signs, you've missed the boat. You're not.
Well, if you're looking for sale signs too, if you're buying something. So that's a good point. So
yeah, let's go back to let's kind of
so let me
do that and talk about site selection.
All right. Well, so before site selection, so our growth plan right now, development, in my opinion, is going to come to a screeching halt pretty soon. Land is at an all-time high. Construction costs are through the roof. I just priced another deal in Texas. It's a mirror of what we just built in Rowlett. It's 11% higher. Wow. And we started construction 18 months ago, finished 6 months ago, 5 months ago in Rowlett. Lumber's through the roof. Just everything is exorbitant right now. It's, the returns are just not attractive. They're getting less and less attractive every day for investors and banks and developers. So we're looking at acquisition. We want to do acquisition, go in and put our mark on it, do some rehab, put the iris memory care touch on it, make sure that it's suitable, obviously, to fulfill our mission. We're not just housing people. We want to make sure that they're, again, compassion, dignity, and comfort. And a lot of that comes in the floor plan. So we need to make sure it fits us right. But we don't just sit around and wait for our brokers to say, hey, this just came on the market, or hey, there's this listing. We meaning really my business partner. I think he's calling 5 to 10 owners a day.
I'm sure there are good brokers out there. I just haven't met any of them.
There are good ones out there. But even when it comes to land and site selection, I don't use a broker. We do it ourselves. I always have. Multifamily, everything. My whole career, I've done it myself, and I figure out where I want to be based on demographics, do a full analysis. All right, we want to be, and this is, again, for any type of real estate, this is where we want to be. Here's a 1 mile radius or a 5 mile radius or a 3 mile radius, whatever it may be. And then I get in the car and I drive up and down every single street. I look for sale signs. I call the for sale signs.
Yeah, then you get at least market comps. And,
get market comps, but then I also get on the tax rolls and find out who owns it and call and make an offer. And more often than most people believe, when you call and make an unsolicited offer, you get people's attention. And I've bought a lot of property that way.
Yeah. So what you were talking about this radius, 1 mile, 3 mile, whatever it is. So how do you determine this radius? I'm not. So you said you're in Norman. Where's the
Edmond?
Edmond, and that's kind of suburby.
It's a northern suburb of Oklahoma City.
Okay,
it'd be the equivalent to Frisco.
Okay, and then Rockwall. So you're
Rowlett.
I'm sorry, Rowlett. So you're kind of outside. Is that
Dallas proper?
Is that kind of, you like to be outside of sort of the major city, or is that
no?
Just
I'd love to be in the major city, but it's hard to.
Just the property's too expensive.
Property's too expensive.
Yeah, 4.5 acres in downtown Dallas would probably not meet the internal rates of return that you're looking for.
Be tough.
Yeah, at one story, you have to go up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Hold my hand. So I can do that again.
Yeah. So we were saying, how do you draw the radius?
Oh, the radius. So that's where the brains of our company comes in. Brandon, he's very analytical. Once he kind of pinpoints an area based on incomes, age demographic, competition or lack thereof, availability, saturation, competitor analysis, lots of different things. And he'll say, okay, then he'll kind of give me a package that says, all right, I've identified this market. Here's why I think. And then I'll look at it and review it. And then we'll kind of go back and forth on banter of, okay, a couple of examples. All right, Brandon, I'll say, Brandon, it looks like we might be a little bit shy on the 65. Let's say 85 plus, which would be our resident profile. And then he may come back and say, yes, you're right, but we're really strong on the 65 plus, which is the decision maker. It's going to be the daughter more often than not. So he's looked at it from every angle you really can. And then I'll kind of peel back a few more layers and just kind of double check what he's done, go back and forth. I don't want to say good cop, bad cop, but that's not the right term, but just make sure everything's looked at properly.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm rambling on. But in a nutshell, we look at incomes, age, both of our profile, resident profile, and our decision-making profile. We look at how saturated is the market. What does the competitor analysis look like? What do the rates look like for our competitors? Are the competitors doing well? If they're not, why? Is it a management thing? Is it an operations thing? Or is it an oversaturated market? And truth be told, even if costs weren't at an all-time high right now, I probably wouldn't be doing new development because the market for memory care is saturated everywhere. We found a needle in a haystack in Rowlett. I don't know that we could find another market today that we would do. There are a couple And just in case somebody watches this, I'm not going to say what they are.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
But there are a couple that we've identified, but we're struggling with underwriting because of everything I just mentioned.
Yeah.
So, but it's kind of scientific, but it's also kind of back of the napkin.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so now that you've got your site picked out, let's kind of go through the timeline here. You mentioned that do you have kind of a basic design, or you just kind of know how many rooms, kitchen,
we have
et cetera?
we have a basic design that we use. It changes. I mean, obviously we've only done 2. It changes. It changed from when we finished the design and permitted Edmond, which was our first one. By the time that we were done with construction, it had changed. I made a lot of changes through the process. And then by the time, kind of lessons learned on that one were implemented in Rowlett, even after, things that I wish we would have done in Edmond, just to make it more user-friendly, easier on our staff. So it's kind of an evolution. And I think if we continue to build this prototype, it'll constantly be an evolution, always looking for ways to improve and be better. But really we do, for all intents and purposes, use the same prototype for each one. You're always going to have kind of the same guts of the project, the same important elements of the design.
Yeah, because I know we talked a little bit about this, about how you need visibility down the hallways, right? Mm-hmm. It's super important for your staff to be able to make sure there's no one like that fell down and they're hiding behind or not hiding
behind a corner, or a dead end, a non-visible area is really important. Yeah, I joke around with my staff that we're going to put an X on the floor, that X marks the spot. I want everybody that comes in our community to know that you stand in one spot and you can see 90% of our building. Really the only areas you're not seeing are inside the bedrooms. Right. And that's done intentionally. We have one dead end and you can see it from that one spot. That one spot's in the living room, where all the action and activity is. And that's probably the most important thing. And then the second most important thing is that common area, that living area. We focus less on the bedrooms and make the bedrooms a little bit smaller, because we're trying to entice the residents to not sit in their bedroom all day, but to come out and be active, and be socialization. Which
just on a side note, at some point, Missy and I are going to design and build a home, and I want the bedroom to be tiny, and I want there to be one thing in there is a bed. It's like, because I feel like, if I go to bed late or I wake up early, I'm having to get my keys really quietly, mm-hmm. and get, and then get dressed. And it's like, why? There should just be like a little dark room and you just go in there to sleep. Like a cave.
I agree. That's kind of what we've done, except it's pretty. We've got to mark it. But yeah, smaller bedrooms so that they don't really, it's pretty, it's comfortable, but we're trying to socialize them and bring them out. We spend a lot of money compared to a lot of our competitors on the bathrooms to make it feel, again, like a single family home. Instead of doing prefab countertops and prefab shower surrounds and, linoleum floor, laminate floor, we do, high-end marbles and granites and ceramic tiles, porcelain tiles.
Yeah, and all the showers are
ADA
compliant, so no curbs. You can just basically
zero curbs,
roll a wheelchair
right in. In fact, one of our competitors was recently somebody that moved in that shopped them before making the decision to move into Iris Memory Care. Our competitor has big, beautiful showers. And they were saying, Iris Memory Care, they just have these little 36 by 36 showers. They're pretty 36 by 36 showers, nice tile. And good detail, but I could have made big showers. But all of our residents need assistance with showering and bathing. It's fall risk. The bigger the shower, the more space there is to fall. Yeah. The less likely you are to have a grab bar. Yeah. So again, all with safety in mind while trying to maintain that home-like environment.
Yeah, because it's not that much more expensive to make a shower a foot bigger. No. You're already in there doing your shower pan and all your tile and the glass. You're not making the glass any bigger. You're just moving it out a foot.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, you're slapping some more tile on the walls.
That's it.
So it's not, but that makes sense. No, that's something else. What other? Oh, I think I noticed pretty much every cabinet everywhere has a lock on it.
Every cabinet everywhere has a lock on it, because
I was-
even shampoo can be dangerous.
Yeah,
Um,
I have a 2-year-old. I know all about this.
yeah, same thing. So have a lock on every cabinet. There was something as you were talking that I had a thought on. What else do we do? We have hard surface flooring throughout. We don't have any carpet. Carpet. The type of carpet you would put in our community is the thin profile carpet without a padding, because there's wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to move them around. So the carpet that would go in isn't going to really pad a fall. And our residents are at fall risk. I mean, we do have falls, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we do hard surface flooring throughout. And the purpose of that is carpet, even a thin profile, is a trip hazard.
Yeah.
Right? At a transition from hard surface to carpet's a trip hazard, or even just walking down the hallway on carpet's a trip hazard. So hypoallergenic laminate flooring that looks like hardwood.
Yeah.
So it's from a cleanliness standpoint, it's hypoallergenic and easy to clean, reduces fall risks, and it's appealing to the eye.
Okay, so let's get back to the financials, and this is probably, I mean, this could apply to pretty much, I guess, all real estate. So I'm not necessarily telling you to give me your personal financial secrets, but I'll kind of lead in, kind of set a framework for, I guess, how real estate is looked at, right? So you essentially, obviously, you have acquisition costs, and then you have whatever your improvement costs are, and then that total is your total development cost, and then you have operational costs, and then you have income, and then obviously there's interest and all those things along the way. So how do you, or just if you want to speak more generically from a real estate perspective, how is that all considered, and how do you look at a deal? And first of all, like when it's just a piece of dirt, how do you go through the process of understanding what those operational expenses are going to be, what those development costs are going to be, and then what the revenues are going to be? So basically, how do you build your budget, and then
good questions.
How do you evaluate it?
I've got a team of lots of people that I trust, that I've worked with for a long time. Construction companies, attorneys, architects, engineers, historically operators, but now we're the operator. We've got a really good handle on income and expenses, so that piece is done operational.
Yeah.
But like I think I said a minute ago, we got some rough numbers for a new project in Dallas, and it's substantially higher than our Rowlett project. And I rely on my relationships to put that budget together. So I know what the architect's going to cost me. The really big unknown is, once I figure out the land, the unknown is the construction cost, which, again, the importance of that is sometimes goes unseen by a lot of people.
Yeah, because for what you're doing, you're probably a couple $100 a foot, I would imagine.
We were $185 a foot.
And you said 50,000 square feet?
25,000.
25,000. Yeah, 12.5 a piece. So I'm not going to attempt to do that.
Over $5 million.
Okay, over $5 million.
Over $5 million construction cost. Plus, you've got the land, which can easily be $1 million. You've got operating costs, which are easily $1 million.
Yeah, because I can imagine if construction costs are up 11% over the past 18 months, I imagine if you were to buy the same piece of land, it would be up at least that much.
Yeah, easy.
I've heard some crazy stuff about, this lot across the street from me sold for $80,000 3 years ago, and then it just sold yesterday for $300,000.
Yeah, no, it's happening all over at all scales too. So it's funny you say that. So, what's really a struggle right now, and I'm not answering your question, but sellers hear of another seller where a buyer came in and paid this huge premium for their land, and then also closed in 30 days and paid cash. That doesn't happen often. But expectations get set, and unrealistic. They're really unrealistic expectations get set. So now one of the challenges is not only are you paying a premium, but people want you to close in 30 days and pay cash.
That's not good.
I'm a developer. I take risks. Excuse me. But I'm not closing on a piece of dirt until my financing's in place. I'm not going to just go use my money and buy the land. I'm going to buy the land with my financing, and I'm not going to buy the land until my zoning's in place. You can add 6 months to the schedule just for zoning.
Yeah.
So we need
let's dig into this due diligence thing. And actually, I think this is something really interesting because it's not something that most people are exposed to from a commercial perspective, like from real estate contracts. So I'll just kind of throw out a few things to talk about. But yeah, due diligence. So, environmentals and things like that. You talk about financing, you talk about zoning. So yeah, let's kind of take me through. Let's have a due diligence conversation.
Due diligence in 30 seconds ish or less. Everything that I talked about as far as identifying a market. Then we identify a site, and then we do a formal market study with a third party. Market study, environmental testing, and remind me to tell you the hurdles we had to go through in Edmond for that. Geotechnical investigations where they're testing your soils. Zoning, politics, financing, permitting, really, I guess could be part of due diligence. And
yeah.
I, being conservative, I put permitting under due diligence because I'm not going to close unless I have a permit in hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a permit ready letter. I'll get a letter that says, from the city, we've reviewed your plans, they're approved, come pay me. And then I'll close and then I'll pay them. But that's, but all those items have long lead times on them, especially the zoning. But the environmental, for example, it can take a month to get an environmental analysis done.
So do you do? So there's phase ones, which are just that's essentially where they just do a historical. They just kind of look at the property.
A site. They do a quick site visit. They walk it, make sure there's nothing glaring. They do look at aerial photography as far back as they can go. They pull deed records, kind of check who's
like COs. Like, was there a lead smelter here,
or even in the radius? Is there a gas station?
Gas station. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be just on your site. It could be a gas station or a dry cleaners a block away. But if the topography is such that things, fall towards your site, then it could potentially raise a red flag. So it's not real cumbersome, but it's pretty detailed. I've had a lot where they recommend you have to do a phase 2, which then they go in and they do soil analysis and make sure that that dry cleaner down the street hasn't dumped on your property.
So what are we talking for phase 1? You're looking at what, like $3,000 to $5,000?
$5,000.
$5,000.
Yeah, for our size.
Oh yeah, and then we didn't even mention survey or title.
Oh shoot. Oh, title. All right. So Edmond.
So did you want to go into detail about the environmentals on Edmond? Okay.
No, well, yeah. So both. I'm going to talk environmental and title on Edmond. Back in the early 1900s, part of our site in Edmond was a pond to hold water for drilling wells, oil. So we had to make sure that none of that oil made it into the water that went into our ponds. We had to do, I think we did six pretty deep borings, and then had to do an analysis on the soils to make sure that there was no.
So you did a soil analysis, not a groundwater analysis.
Right. We didn't hit groundwater. We didn't go.
Oh, okay.
We went pretty far down. We didn't hit groundwater. If we would have hit water, we would have had to do the analysis. But it was after that. It was then it was farmland for 50 years, and then it got developed.
So how much is that? You said 5 sites. How many?
Our environmental cost in total were about $20,000.
This is before you close.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then so let's kind of talk about before. Well, actually, even right when you sign the contract, you're going to have to pay some sort of earnest money to the seller. But typically, you have some sort of feasibility period that you can get your earnest money back.
Get it back. Right. Yeah, typically
at least partially refundable, maybe 90% of it, maybe 100%.
Usually 100%. I'll give a $1,000 consideration fee or something. Earnest money ranges anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on the market. we paid a lot more for earnest money in Rowlett than we did in Edmond. I like to think I'm a good negotiator because I get a lot of time on the contract.
If you can get over 6 months, so how like if
from the time we put Rowlett under contract to the time that we closed, we had it under contract for a year.
And so you went through all of your zoning,
everything,
and then what? So are you working with architect, civil engineer at the time that you're going through zoning as well?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I usually
that's a big expense as well.
I get to a certain point in the zoning, get the comfort level that I need. Usually, you have to go to plan commission, city plan commission, and city council for zoning approval. If I get approved, and they're usually about a month apart. If I get approved at plan commission, then I'll go ahead and pull the trigger and start the design.
So I've been through zoning, and basically what I did is I took the existing zoning document, which was a PD, and essentially we were creating a new subdistrict. So we were just amending the PD. So I've
done 2 rezonings in your PD 714.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I mean, I basically went through that document and I rewrote, or I suggested changes and then gave it to the city. How do you approach it? Do you just
depends on where? PD 714, City of Dallas, Fort Worth Avenue, exactly what you did. Rowlett and Edmond, I typed up exactly what I wanted, gave it to staff. They redline it, say, I think you'll have a better shot of getting our not of approval or our suggestion for approval to plan commission if you do this, this, and this. I'll agree to the changes, or I'll negotiate the changes. Sometimes I'll disagree to the changes and go before plan commission and tell them why I need this. But I usually start from scratch.
So did they make you say, like, because obviously there's a lot of different aspects in zoning, you could do floor heights, architectural design standards.
Everything.
So do you use some sort of institutional as a base or commercial as a base?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we'll use, because I'm not closing on the land before the zoning's in place, the seller that I'm buying the land from every time doesn't want to change their zoning, because they usually have commercial zoning. We're usually going after commercial type sites. So they don't want to lose their zoning, have me go in and put assisted living specific zoning in place and then not close. And then they're stuck with my project as opposed to this wide variety of uses that they can put into
so it's
commercial
a
use.
bolt-on.
So I'll go in, and I say I'm starting from scratch. I guess there's a caveat to that. I'll say, all right, I'm creating a new PD. The base zoning is commercial. So
that inherits from
this. So anything that's under the commercial district and all the design regulations of commercial districts still apply. And you can build assisted living, and here's the requirements for assisted living. And then it lays out everything from parking, tree counts, tree spacing, height, roof.
Anything that you're concerned
fencing,
about.
Screening.
And it kind of says if there's a conflict between these two documents, then my PD rules out.
Right. If it's an assisted living project, then my PD rules out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If it's anything that's allowed under commercial zoning, then everything under the commercial zoning district pertains. If it's an assisted living use, then here is everything that must be implemented into the project. If there's a conflict, then for an assisted living project, then the assisted living regulation component of the PD applies, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can we pause for a minute?
Yeah, sure. And we're back. I don't know exactly where we were, but I think this due diligence thing is I think this is something that not many people know about. And so I think we should talk more about it. We've talked about phase 1 environmentals, which is all the historical, basically paperwork search, kind of visual observation. And then phase 2, if they find something in phase 1, you go on to phase 2. You may have to do soil borings. You may have to do lead paint samples, or all sorts of crazy stuff.
Or just a chain of title research. Aside from what we had to do in Edmond, I've only had to do one phase 2, and quite frankly, I can't remember what all is involved in it.
I think it's very much dependent on what they find in phase 1, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So, so let's talk about. I can't remember exactly where we were at, but let's talk about title. I mean, what are some? All right.
So title, Edmond was at one time, my small little 2 or 2.5 acres was part of a very large tract that was all farmland. And the owners of that large tract dedicated easements to oil and gas companies for pipelines. It's Oklahoma, oil and gas world, right?
Yeah.
So while there are no pipelines that go through my property, because of the way the title was, they were blanket easements.
Oh, okay.
And then it was blanket easements, and then said that once the pipeline was put in, then it became defined by where the pipelines were.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Because they just want to basically put the pipeline wherever they want to put it, and then define the easement later. Yeah.
So probably didn't have to go through the exercise, but I did. I kind of needed the extra time on the contract to get to the closing table anyway, so I used this as an excuse. But we got 6 extra months on the contract at zero cost because I made the seller get in touch with every single one of those pipeline companies. They don't dissolve, they get bought out. They become somebody else. So he had to get in touch with every single one of those oil and gas companies or pipeline companies and get affidavits that the easements were now defined. They weren't a part of the 2.5 acres that I was buying. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. So basically title, just to sum up what title is for people who may not understand it, is essentially, so you have title companies that do a whole bunch of legal research essentially to prove or to try to get an understanding that you are buying what you think you're buying, and that the person selling it to you actually has the legal right to sell it to you, right? That's kind of the idea, is sort of like, if someone's like, hey man, you want to buy this car, and you buy it and it turns out to be stolen, it's pretty easy, they just come take the car back and go, yeah, you bought a stolen car.
Right.
But some of those similar things can happen in the real estate world, right? If someone dies and maybe their will said that their son got the property, but then their daughter is trying to sell it to you or something.
It's looking at all that, but it also takes it a step further, and it looks at, it's looking at the chain of title, which is ownership, but then what easements may go through the property. What right of way? Does the city have an easement for a water line that goes through the middle of it? For example, we're in my house right now. There's an easement that goes between my fence and this building that we're sitting in, so that the person behind me can have sanitary sewer service.
Oh, really? It doesn't go out to that street.
It doesn't go out to that street. It goes out to this street. So you're also looking at easements. What rights has the owner of the property given away to other people to use the property? So I can never build a permanent structure between the edge of the building and the fence because there's an easement that's perpetual. Unless I go and put in a new sanitary sewer line across the street and around the street and do all kinds of things to give him sanitary sewer service.
Oh, okay, because most people in these neighborhoods, they don't face the side streets; they face the main streets. So the side streets don't have any utilities in them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So you talked. We were talking about zoning a little bit. So you basically write a PD that says, I'm basically bolting on to whatever commercial use that's here existing, this other use. And then you mentioned it goes to usually like a planning, like P&Z, they call it P&Z boards,
right.
Planning commissioners, whatever. And then essentially they review it, and then it goes on to city council, gets voted on there. Anything else you want to add to that zoning process?
No, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, except for the HOA. It can get very political. You negotiate and meet with the homeowners associations.
Well, that was going to be the next thing. Let's talk about the political, from what we assume like legal representation, government, and then also just kind of political, like people, neighbors. So yeah, what does that process look like?
No matter what you're doing, single story structure that looks like a single family home, like Iris Memory Care or apartments, you're going to have what they call NIMBY, not in my backyard, NIMBY. Always, at least one, a lot of the time, a lot of people just come out of the woodwork and oppose you. More often than not, they're opposing you because they're uneducated on what you're actually proposing. But there's always opposition.
It's probably because they're cave people. Do you know what cave people are?
No.
Citizens against virtually everything.
Yeah, they are cave people.
Yeah, like you like when you buy this property, you probably have the right to put like a Subway, like sandwich shop and a Texaco there, and they couldn't stop you, but you want to put a memory care facility, and they're like, I don't want old people in my neighborhood.
Oh, the sirens for the ambulance coming all the time is going to wake me up, or
well, you don't have to worry about loud parties.
Thought somebody's knocking on my door. Yeah, you don't have to worry about loud parties. The dumpster, the truck picking up the dumpster in the mornings is going to wake me up. Well, you're going to have that if it's a gas station and a Subway. Yeah. We had one, they didn't want to be able to see the air conditioner units around the building. We use residential style air conditioner units, but they didn't want to see those. They were afraid that they didn't want to see them from their second story window, and they were afraid the noise of them was going to interrupt their time at their own pool in their backyard.
What about their own air conditioning unit? Yeah. So yeah, people just want to. So how do you handle that? You just basically go up there, suck up to them. Say, hey,
I go up there, and they always, more often than not, I'll say about 50% of the people that are opposing, I can turn and get to support. There's always going to be that handful. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 20 that are still going to oppose no matter what. No matter how much we negotiate with them, give and take. Hey, I'll move the air conditioner units. I'll put this fence in. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll landscape it. They're still going to oppose you. So you go up. You can't do this with multifamily. Multifamily is a lot more political. But for my use, you go up to the podium at City Council or P&Z and pull at the heartstrings. You're going to deny the zoning. You're going to make the senior citizens of Rowlett that have lived here for 50 years have to move to a different city when they need memory care or assisted living because some guy doesn't want an air conditioner close to his backyard.
So did you had some opposition in Rowlett?
Oh yeah.
God, that's just crazy.
I had to put in a $100,000 screen wall because of the opposition in Rowlett.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. So we've covered zoning, we've covered environmental, we've covered title,
geotech.
We haven't really talked about geotechnical. So basically, where you took soil samples up in Oklahoma, you were looking for environmental contaminants, but there's also a different soil sampling process or geotechnical investigation or whatever that they do. So basically come out, bore some cylinders, analyze the soil.
And then you design the foundation based on what you find. Sometimes we had to excavate 6 feet of dirt in Rowlett, take it out.
Because high clay content?
High clay content.
So did you... Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry. We were going to have to, but we ended up injecting the soil with lime. It was a 3-week process.
Lime stabilization?
Lime stabilization. They went down, I think, 16 feet.
Yeah, this is really interesting that people don't understand that it's usually not the bearing capacity, right? Like the dirt's pretty strong, like it's not going anywhere. It's the potential vertical rise.
That's exactly
so.
Right.
Yeah, when clay has a high plasticity index, and so when it gets wet, it expands. And so yeah, you can do moisture treatment, you can do lime stabilization, or you can just pull out all the clay and replace it with
select fill.
Select fill, which has got more sand and silt and it's not going to have as much expansion. But yeah, and so you're actually worried more about it lifting your building up than...
That's all you're worried about, really, is lifting your building up.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't see how, for some reason, this seems to work, but yeah, with the moisture treatment, they basically just go in there and saturate all the dirt, and then basically the idea is once you put a building on top of it, it'll never dry out.
That's right.
Yeah, which I
don't understand, but it's what it's how it works.
Make sure to run your sprinklers year round as well. So, okay, geotechnical. Let's get a little bit into the design process. So I kind of mentioned a few folks, but obviously you've got a civil engineer who's going to do all of your site stuff, right? Who's going to look at drainage and parking and things like that. You have a structural engineer who's going to be looking at your slabs and your walls. You have an architect who's basically going to be doing the space planning, the layout.
Let's go back to my original starting comment.
Okay.
The architect puts on paper what I tell him to put on paper. This is what I want. This is my concept. And then I pretty much do all the design. What the architect's doing for me is code compliance.
Code compliance. So looking at ADA stuff, like you got to have 18 inches for to the right,
the door,
for
this
12 inches.
Shower needs to be this. The counters need to be this height. The MEP and the architect together are making sure that all my life safety systems are in place.
Egress pathways,
lighting systems, emergency lighting, generators, gas lines, all of the code details.
Yeah, because we didn't mention MEP engineer. So MEP mechanical, or for the layperson, air conditioning and heating. E of MEP electrical. So we know what electrical is, and then P for plumbing.
Right.
So that's another person on your design team. Do you use any interior designers or?
No.
So
Do
just
it all
architect,
ourselves.
MEP, structural, and civil.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and then
A lot of people use interior designer, but we do it ourselves.
yeah. Yeah, I noticed. So you pick out all your
Pick out everything.
yeah.
All the furniture, all the fabrics, all the paint colors, all the floor materials, countertops, cabinets.
You like that shit.
I like that shit.
Yeah. Okay. So how far? I mean, do you get all the way? So you get all the way to construction documents under your feasibility period while you're under contract before you close.
Yep. When we close on a property, when we close on a project, we're closing on the financing for everything. So including the land. But when we close specifically on the land, I have my zoning in place, my permit letter or permit approval in place. I've already bid the project. I have a construction contract ready to sign at the closing table. So when we close on a project, we buy the land. I usually drive from the closing office or the title company after closing, go straight to the city and pay for the permits, pick up my permits, and we start construction the next day.
Nice. Maybe a little bit of mobilization in there.
Well, when I say start, it may be putting up a sign.
Yeah.
Or maybe, but within 3 or 4 days, they're moving dirt. So usually what they do on the first day, the day after we close, what you'll usually see is the coming soon sign comes up, the construction company's logo and name sign comes up, silt fence goes in, construction entry goes in. Next day, the job site trailer gets delivered, temporary electric comes in, and then by the third day, they're moving dirt.
Yeah. So, oh man, what did I had something that I really wanted to ask you. Let me think. Well, let's talk about this for a little bit. Yeah. So that's another thing that people that may not really understand that we could talk about is, storm, what is it?
Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan.
Yeah. So if you've ever seen SWPPP on a sign, you're legally not.
TxDOT now uses SWP3 on their signs.
Oh, okay.
But yes.
Yeah. So you're not allowed. Essentially, they say nothing that's on your property can leave the property.
Right.
And so that's whether through the air, usually they're harping more on silt fences. So if you've ever seen these black fences around construction sites, it's basically to keep the dirt.
When the water goes flying.
Yeah.
It traps the silt or the dirt behind the fence so that it doesn't go onto the streets into the storm system. And then you'll have to put a riprap driveway. Riprap is broken up concrete, essentially that's the size of your fist. You put that down where your trucks come in and out of the site so that as they're driving over that, any dirt on their wheels and whatnot's kind of falling off on your property before they get to the public street.
Right. Oh, okay. I remember what I was going to ask. Okay. So we could go through the exercise of adding up all the costs we talked about, but I think we left some out. But you probably have a number. I mean, like what's like how much are you spending before you even close on the land?
Before I close on the land, which again is closing on the project financing, I'm out $250,000.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, we went through the same thing. We actually had a construction contract executed. I think we had a contingency in there, contingent upon closing or whatever. Yeah, we had a construction contract executed. We did not have permits, which obviously we would not be closed because we still don't have permits. But
I know how it goes.
Yeah. So actually, have you ever done a replat?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I think I don't know, it may be boring to people, but
I've abandoned right away before too.
Okay, yeah, so
I've bought easements back from AT&T and Encore.
So we're not having to buy any easements. We're having to dedicate right of way. We're abandoning right of way. We're doing a replat. We're turning 5 lots plus an alley into 1 lot. Rezoning, specific use permit. Which I'll talk about specific use permit real quick if you haven't heard of these. So a lot of times within the zoning, it'll say you can do X, Y, Z. You can have a gas station or whatever it is, but you have to get the specific use permit. So it's almost like rezoning, but it's just a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And all you have to really do is prove that the neighborhood needs and will benefit from whatever it is. But yeah, so we have to do a specific use permit that you have to renew every so often. But yeah, replatting, man, I'll tell you what, when you replat, they just get you for everything
they can.
Yeah, it's
when we replatted.
We've been in the replat process for 6 months now.
We didn't have to replat. Oklahoma law is a little bit different. We didn't have to replat Edmond.
Oklahoma's a little bit different.
Yes, it is. We didn't have to replat Edmond into its own parcel. We bought it by meets and bounds and did a lot separation with the city. We good?
Is there a red light over there?
Yes.
All right.
It's flashing.
Cool.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we didn't have to do any plating there, so we got lucky. But here, they took 25 feet of the front of my property and the replat for right of way. So if they ever want to expand the street, they can.
25.
And I had to pay for that property.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then turn around and give it to.
Well, yeah, I made a swap. I said, well, if I'm going to dedicate right of way, then I'm going to get credit for that when I go to pay for the abandonment. Now I still have to pay the $5,000 application fee.
Right, but they agreed to it?
And they said, yeah.
Wow.
They said, yep, I don't know how they could not agree to that.
Right.
It's like, wait, I'm going to give you land for free, but then you're going to give me land, I have to pay for it.
Right.
On the same property. No. Yeah. So we did a swap there. But so I think we covered the nuts and the bolts of the due diligence, which I think is really interesting because, before, and this was always just like kind of a mystery to me. Even when I was doing multifamily development, I was more on the construction side. So I didn't really understand a lot of this stuff. But I'll tell you what, going through it has been quite a learning experience. And
there's a lot that goes into it. I think the most important part is the front end due diligence before you even identify a site, which is identifying a market. Where do you want to be? Yeah. Because I can build anywhere. Yeah. But what's the point of building it if I can't fill it up?
Oh, something I didn't know. Like I didn't know this until I felt like, well, whatever. I don't easily get embarrassed, but when we were starting the replat process, I basically called up my civil engineer and I was like, hey, did you cover replat in your bid? And he's like, no, I did not. And I was like, okay, well, can you do that? And he's like, no, but a registered surveyor in the state of Texas can. And I had no idea how much. Before this, I thought surveyors just came out and like found like corners, but these people are like, they do research, like they make interpretations.
Title, going back to title.
Yeah.
They review all the title. They have to review the title in order to put on that survey the easement that goes through the middle of the property. They have to research zoning because a lot of lenders want all the zoning setbacks and whatnot put on the survey. When they're doing a plat or a replat, they have to meet all the city requirements to prepare that document. So surveys,
they're like part lawyer, part engineer, part
go out and get the.
Yeah, I thought they were just the guys that set building corners,
Yeah, no, they do a lot more than that.
They do a lot.
Do you use Jeremy Deal?
No, I ended up using I can't remember actually a company out of Rockwall, A&W. I had just used them before, and they had a really quick lead time. I needed a quick lead time, so but yeah, and they're well priced, so good company. But yeah, man, so I think we've kind of hashed out the
due diligence.
The due diligence, man. So what you said? What are you, about a year construction time is what you're looking at?
9 to 10 months. Rowlett, we were 12 because the rain pounded us last summer. If you remember all the rain we got.
Yeah, and I assume it's pretty similar to a house as far as the way it goes together.
Yeah.
Single story wood frame.
Single story stick frame, brick on the outside.
And you do trusses, I imagine, because of your big spans.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a truss designer that designs those and delivers them, and then your framer installs them.
Yep. Turnkey. Usually the framer will buy.
Okay.
Usually the general contractor will do a turnkey contract, which will include them buying the trusses, and they'll just take our floor plan and the truss company designs. The truss company has an engineer in house that designs the trusses based on your floor plan.
Yeah,
and roof line,
and they're really good at that. I look at the plans. I'm like, I have no idea what this roof line actually looks like in three-dimensional space.
I can never figure it out.
And then somehow you have to produce like trusses that make that shape, and they do it, man. They're good.
Yeah.
They must have like some crazy software. But okay, so and then like I guess between the time you get a CO and you're like, are you moving residents in the next day, or do you have a lot of?
No, we get a CO, and then in the state of Texas, I'm only going to talk state of Texas. Oklahoma, yes, move. You get your C of O, you produce your C of O to the state. They turn around and issue you a license. There's some architectural inspections through the process up until then, but it's pretty quick and easy process.
But pretty well paralleled.
Yeah. In Texas, state licensing agency does not come out and do any inspections until you're complete with construction. In fact, you have to have a certificate of occupancy from the city, a letter from the fire marshal that has very specific language in it. Don't ask me what it is. I don't remember. Then I have to give that both of those to the state, and then they'll schedule your life safety inspection. It can take up to, I think it took us 3 or 4 weeks before we actually had it. So we sat with the building with the C of O on it for 3 or 4 weeks, had the life safety inspection. The life safety inspector was out there for 3 days. Went so far as pulling the screws out of the screws that hold the door hinges on the door to make sure that we use the right type of screws because of fire ratings.
Wow.
Just to give you the amount of detail he went through. 3 days. Tested every system in the building, looked at everything, from the screws to the baseboards that are on the walls to make sure that they have the special fire rating, specific fire rating for an I2 occupancy. Sits down, spends about a half a day going through a binder that I have to prepare that has everything from the specs to every fabric that's on every piece of furniture in the building, to every curtain in the building, to all the floor, to all the tile, any wall coverings, the paint, the fire dampers, everything that's in that building. He'll just go through and look at it all.
So does that go through TDLR, Texas Department of License?
It does, but that's not who's doing the inspection. But yeah, that TDLR, we hire the TDLR. Third
you have a third party, just like if you're doing TAS or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So
and then you pass that. Mm-hmm. We passed on the first run. That never happens. So we were pretty proud of the fact that we passed on the first inspection, life safety inspection. Then you can move in up to 3 residents, and then you wait for your health inspection. And the health inspectors come out and look at every detail again for probably 2 days this time on all your operations. Make sure that med passes are done properly and physician's orders are filed properly, and you're following the physician's orders. And
so do you have to have the health inspector out for the kitchen prior to the CO as well?
Different. Tanya's home. Different. City health inspector looks at the kitchen. Now, the state health inspector will look at the kitchen from the standpoint of making sure that state requirements for assisted living are being met, caloric intake and types of food and ordering processes and things of that nature.
Well, cool. Well, I think we're running out of time here. So you ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right, man. Well,
let's do another one and talk about houses.
Yes, let's do. I do. Man, it's been a wealth of information. I hope someone learned something from this conversation. I know I did, but appreciate you taking the time to do it, man.
Good stuff.
All right.
Cool, man. That was fun.